Not a single soul knew the reason for the feud between the sons of Cian and the sons of Tuirenn. Perhaps it had its root in a sharp word, some affront to honour, but the result was that the 3 sons of Cian and the 3 sons of Tuirenn had sworn to shed each other's blood should they ever meet one another. So it came about that the eldest son of Cian, Cian, whose name means the enduring one, was crossing the great plain of Murathamne on his way to join the children of Danu at the Plain of Towers, for the news was that a great battle was being fought against the Fomori. Cian was alone, for his 2 brothers Ku and Cathen had gone on before him. It was as he was on the open plain some way from the shelter that he saw 3 warriors heading towards him. Standing tall in his chariot, Cian narrowed his eyes to examine them. There was no mistaking the grim visage of Brienne, whose name means exalted one, and his brothers Luca and Lucarba. Now Cian realized, because he was outnumbered, that discretion was the better part of valor. But there being no cover on the plain, except for a herd of pigs feeding, being one of the children of Danu, Cian took a druid wand and changed his shape into that of a pig, also causing his chariot and horses to be likewise transformed. Brian, one of the sons of Tuirenn, chieftain of Beneder, paused and stared across the plain. "Brothers," he said, turning to Lucar and Lucarba, "was there not a proud warrior crossing the plain a moment ago?" They affirmed that their brother was indeed correct. Brian saw the herd of pigs, and he then realized that the warrior must have shape changed. If this were so, then the warrior was no friend to the sons of Tuirenn. Now Brian realized that the herd of pigs belonged to Nuada himself, and if he or his brothers harmed them, Nuada would punish them greatly. So he took his own druid wand, and he touched his brothers lightly. Lucar and Lucarba were changed into 2 great hounds, and straightway, baying eagerly, they made for the herd, keen noses to the ground. Cian realized that the hounds would sniff him out, and so, still in the shape of a pig, he made a break from the herd. But Brian was standing ready to cast his spear through the pig's shape. Cian screamed in agony. "I am Cian, son of Cian, and I plead for quarter," cried the pig. Brian, now joined by his brothers in their true shape, stood before the bleeding pig. "No quarter," snapped Brian. "We have all sworn an oath that no one would survive our encounters should the sons of Cian and the sons of Tuirenn meet." "Then grant me a last request," cried Cian in resignation. "Let me resume my human form before you kill me." This Brian granted. Cian then smiled triumphantly at him. "You may kill me now, but remember this, O sons of Tuirenn. Had you killed me as a pig, your punishment would have only been the eric fine paid on the unlawful slaughter of a pig. Since you now kill me as a man, then you will have to pay the eric fine of a man. Moreover, as I am Cian the Enduring, the son of Cian, the father of Lu of the Long Hand, the punishment that shall be exacted will be great. Even the weapons with which you kill me shall cry out in horror at this deed." Brian thought for a while, for it was true that Cian was one of the children of Danu. He then smiled sneeringly at Cian. "Then it shall not be with weapons you will be killed, but with the stones of the earth." So saying, he threw aside his weapon and picked up some stones and began to hurl them in hate at Cian. He was joined by his brothers, and stone after stone threw until Cian was disfigured and an unrecognizable mess of a man. Then the brothers dug a grave and buried the battered body. But 6 times the earth refused to cover the corpse, pushing it to the surface, before at the 7th time of burying, the earth accepted the body. Yet, as Brian and his brothers rode away, they heard a voice calling from beneath the earth. "The blood is on your hands, sons of Tuirenn, and there it will remain until we meet again." The sons of Tuirenn distinguished themselves in the great battle of the Plain of Towers, in which Bress and the Fomori were defeated, but everyone remarked that Cian was absent, which was strange, as it was Cian's own son who had taken over leadership of the children of Danu when Nuada had been killed by the Fomori, Balor of the Evil Eye. So, after a fruitless search, Lulamvada finally came to the plain of Mranthne, and, as he was travelling across it, the stones of the earth started to speak. "Here lies the body of your father Cian. He was killed by the Sons of Tuirenn. Blood on their hands until they meet with Cian again." Lu and his father's body disinterred, and he called his companions together that they might see how the deed was done. And Lu swore vengeance. Lu sang a lament over the body. "Cian's death of a great champion, has left me as a walking corpse, without a soul, without strength, without power, without a feeling for life. Now my hatred will come against them, the sons of Tuirenn who have killed him, and follow them to the ends of the earth." Lu buried his father's body with all pomp and ceremony, and went back to the great hall of Tara, where he summoned all the people of the land. Even the sons of Tuirenn were asked among them, but Lu kept his counsel. Instead, he asked those among the gods what they would do to take vengeance on those who had, with malice, slaughtered their fathers. Each of the gods suggested ways increasingly more horrible and more bloody as a means of punishment. And when the last of them had spoken, the assembly roared its approval. Lu saw that the sons of Tuirenn, not wishing to be conspicuous within the throng, were also applauding. Then Lu, with a scowl on his unusual sunny countenance, spoke up. "The murderers of Cian have condemned themselves, for they have joined in the agreement of you all as to their punishment. But I am merciful. I will not spill blood in Tara. I claim the right to put an eric fine on the murderers. If they refuse to accept it, then they must meet me one after the other in bloody single combat at the door of Tara's hall." And while he spoke, he was looking directly at the sons of Tuirenn. Then Brienne moved forward. "It is known there was enmity between us and your father, and his brothers Ku and Cathen. Your words seem addressed to us, but Cian was not killed by any weapons of the sons of Tuirenn. Nevertheless, to show that we are honourable, each one of us will accept your eric fine." Lu smiled grimly. "You will not find it difficult. I wish for 3 apples, the skin of a pig, a spear, 2 horses with a chariot, 7 swine, a hound pup, a cooking spit, and 3 shouts to be delivered on a hill." Not only the sons of Tuirenn stood amazed but the entire assembly could not believe their ears at the little Lu demanded in compensation for his father's death. The sons of Tuirenn were visibly relieved and clamoured to accept the fine. "If you think it's too heavy," Lu added, "I will not press the fine." We do not consider it heavy," replied Brienne. "In fact, it seems so light that I suspect some trickery. Are you intending to increase the sum?" "I swear by our mother Danu, the divine waters, that the fine will not be increased. And in return for this oath, do you swear that you will faithfully complete the eric fine?" They did so, with mighty acclaim. "Very well," Lu chuckled grimly, after they had sworn. "The 3 apples must come from the garden of Hesperides, in the east. They are of gold colour, and have immense power and virtue. They are as big as the head of a month-old child, and they never grow less, no matter how much is eaten from them. They have a taste of honey, and a bite that will cure a sick or wounded man. A warrior can perform any feat with one, for once it is cast from his hand, it will return to him." The sons of Tuirenn looked thunderstruck. "The skin of the pig is that owned by Tuus, king of Greece. In whatever stream that pig walked, the waters turned to wine, and the wounded and sick became well when they drank of it. These magical properties are enshrined by the skin of that pig." The sons of Tuirenn began to look grim. "The spear that I wish is that which belongs to Paesia of Persia, and it is called Slaughterer. So brutal is its lust that it must be kept in a cauldron of blood to prevent it killing, for only blood cools this angry blade. Lu paused, but the Sons of Tuirenn now stood expressionless, as they had realized the trap that Lu had set for them. The steeds and the chariot which I require are those belonging to Dovar, of Siogan, of Sioger, of Shoger. Shoger, yeah, let's go with that. Are those belonging to Dovar of Shoger. If one of the horses are killed, it will come back to life, if its bones are brought together in the same place. The 7 swine are those of Esael, king of the golden pillars, which, though killed every day for a feast, are found alive the following morning. The hound pup is Phelines, owned by the king of Rodave. The wild beasts are helpless before her. The cooking spit that I want is that from the Isle of Fian Cujver, which is protected by the mighty female warriors. And the hill on which you must give 3 shouts is that of Miodiocane in Lochlain, which is constantly guarded by the Miodiocan and his 3 fierce sons, Ave, Korka, and Kon. Their task is solely to prevent any person from raising their voice on the hill. This, O Sons of Tuirenn, is the Eric fine I ask of you. When Tuirenn himself heard what had befallen his sons, he was upset, but he went to them and gave them his advice. No one can set out on this voyage without the magical ship of the god of the oceans, Mananan Maclear. But Lu is the one who owns this ship. It is called the Wave Sweeper, and it can navigate itself across the seas. But listen to me. Lu is under a gias, a sacred prescription, never to refuse a second request. So you should go to him and ask for a loan of Mananan's fabulous horse, Ionvar, which can gallop over land and water. He will of course refuse this, but once he has done that, then you must ask for Wave Sweeper, and then he cannot refuse. And this they did, and it happened as Tuirenn said. Lu was forced to give them loan of Mananan's boat, and Tuirenn and his daughter Ithane went to see them off from the harbour at Benidaire. Their sister Ithane sang a lament of farewell, for as much as she loved them, she knew that they had done an evil thing, and therefore only evil would come of it. The 3 warriors climbed into the Wave Sweeper, and Brienne commanded it to cross the ocean to the garden of Hesperides. The boat leapt forward at his command, and ploughed through the white-crested waves more swiftly than if the winds of spring were blown into its sail. So fast did it travel that within the wink of an eye it came safely to the harbour of Hesperides, and on the extreme western edge of the ocean it ceased motion. The 3 brothers climbed out. They learnt that the apples were in the orchard of Hesperides, and they were so well guarded that they had no chance of entering without discovery. It was then that Brienne drew up his druid's wand and changed his brothers and himself into hawks. On his instruction, they rose into the air and circled high above the orchard, and then they swooped down, travelling so fast that the arrows and spears of the guards could not hit them. Each in turn, they seized one of the golden apples, rose again into the air, and raced back to the harbour where they had left their boat. Now the king of Hesperides had 3 daughters, all of whom were sorceresses, and when he heard the news, he commanded them to transform themselves into 3 griffins and pursue the hawks, breathing great tongues of fire after them. So fierce were the flames that the hawks were burnt, blinded, and their feathers singed. They could not bear the heat any longer. Brienne then used his druid's lore and changed them into swans who were able to glide down onto the sea. The griffins became confused, and they flew off, still looking for the hawks and the Sons of Tuirenn, made their way back to the wave sweeper. Next, they commanded the boat to take them to Greece and entered the harbour close to the palace of Tuies. Brienne's brothers wanted him to disguise them as animals, but he told them that the poets of the Isle of Destiny were well respected in Greece, and that they would go up to the king's palace and present themselves as such. Indeed, this was truly thought out, for the guards allowed these three poets into the king's palace. Tuies himself greeted them and invited them to a great feast. They all gorged themselves, and at the end of the feast, the king's poets rose and recited their poems. The king then invited the Sons of Tuirenn to recite some poetry. Brienne stood up, and he intoned these verses. I conceal not your fame, O Tuies, great as an oak amongst kings. A pigskin is a reward without meanness, and this is what I claim in return for this poem. A war may come when warriors clash. A war may be averted by a gift, and he who gives without fear shall lose nothing. A stormy army and a tempestuous sea are weapons that no one would oppose, but a pigskin, a reward freely given, is that which we claim. This sounds an excellent poem, mused Tuies, yet I do not understand it. I will interpret it then, smiled Brienne. It means that as an oak excels above all other trees, so do you in your kingship. We claim the pigskin you have as a reward for our poem, but if you refuse this, it means that there will be a war between us. Tuies doubled back and stared in surprise. I would like your poem if you had not mentioned my magical pigskin. You seem a foolish man, poet, to even consider asking for it. I would refuse even the kings and warriors of your land had they demanded it, so now I refuse you. Yet your poem is good, and I will reward you with gold. And 3 times in gold what that pigskin will hold, I will give you as your fee. Generous as you are, king, Brienne laughed. Let us watch while the gold is measured in the skin. The king agreed, and the Sons of Tuirenn were brought to the treasure house. The skin was fetched from its special place where Tuies had hidden it, and when the skinfuls of gold were weighed, and the Sons of Tuirenn had placed the gold in their pockets, Brienne suddenly grabbed the skin, drawing his sword and cutting clean off the arm of the man who held it. He wrapped the skin about himself, and the 3 brothers began to fight their way from the palace. In rage and fury, Tuies and his court attacked them, but not one noble nor champion of Greece was able to halt them. Tuies himself fell before the slashing sword of Brienne. They fought their way back to the wave sweeper, and straight away they called on it to take them to Persia. It was agreed that the disguise of the poets worked well for them, and so they presented themselves once more in the court of Paisir in the same manner. Again they were asked to recite a poem, and so Brienne stood up and did so. Small esteem of any spear with Paisir. His enemies are already broken. Paisir has little cause to worry, since it is others who receive wounds. The yew is the finest tree in the forest. The yew is king without opposition. May the great spear shafts drive on through the wounds of those they slay. When Paisir, looking confused, asked Brienne to spell out the meaning of the poem, Brienne told him that he wanted the magical spear in payment for the poem. When Paisir threatened to kill him and his brothers for their audacity, Brienne remembered that he had one of the apples from Hesperides with him. He took it from his bag and threw it at Paisir, so hard that it knocked the king's head off, and then the apple returned safely to his hand, just as Lou described. Then Brienne and his brothers drew their swords, and they fought their way to the room where the blazing spear was kept in its cauldron of blood, hissing and bubbling. They took it and went back to the wave sweeper. On they went to Dovar's kingdom of Shogier, and appeared before his court in the guise of 3 champions of the Isle of Destiny, seeking hospitality for the night. When asked what they wanted, they told Dovar the king that they would serve him for a payment. They ended up spending a very long time at Shogir, because they were unable to find the steeds in the chariot, which were faster than the winds of spring. Finally, Brienne tricked the king into ordering that the chariot be brought into the court, harnessed and ready. And when the sons of Tuirenn turned and demanded the prancing horses and the beautiful chariot as the price for their service, Dovar flew into a rage and ordered his guards to kill them. Brienne sprang into the chariot, hurling the charioteer to the ground. He took the reins in his hand and unloosed the spear of Paisir. So the guards of Dover were slain, and those who were not simply fled. With Luca and Lucaba behind him, Brienne drove the chariot back to the waiting wave sweeper. Next, the magical boat of Manannán mac Lir brought them to the land of the Golden Pillars, the entrance of the Middle Sea, where Isal ruled. And when they came to the shore, they saw great armies had gathered, for now the infamy of the deeds of the Sons of Tuirenn had travelled before them, and news of their banishment from the Isle of Destiny and the nature of their tasks had preceded them. When Isal, the king, came down to the harbour to meet them, he demanded to know if it was true that they had come for his swine. They told him it was. Now, Isal was a peaceful man, and he went and sat in council with his chieftains. Eventually, they decided that they would just hand the swine to the Sons of Tuirenn to avoid the slaughter of the innocent. That night, Isal invited the brothers to a feasting, where the 7 pigs were handed to them. Brienne sang a paean in praise of Isal's wisdom and generosity. When Isal learnt that the Sons of Tuirenn were going next to the country of Iorui, the king asked that he be allowed to accompany them, for his daughter was the wife of the king of Iorui. Isal promised in return to do his best to secure the hound pup from the king, his son-in-law, without bloodshed. The king of Iorui would have none of Isal's nonsense. You may be weak, old man, but the gods have not given strength nor luck enough to any warrior to take my hound pup by force. Isal was saddened, for he knew what bloodshed and mayhem would follow. A great and bloody battle began, and Brienne cleaved his way through the warriors of Iorui, throwing them back by 9 times 100 until he reached the spot where the king of Iorui stood, and he picked up the kingly body and fought his way back until he threw the craven man at Isal's feet. "There is your daughter's husband, O king. It would have been much easier to kill this runt than to return with him alive." The warriors of Iorui, seeing their king defeated, threw their arms down immediately, and the king now heeded to the peaceful tones of Isal, and handed over the hound pup. And the Sons of Tuirenn took their leave in a fearful friendship. Now only 2 tasks remained to be filled. They were to find the cooking spit of Fian Cuv and give 3 shouts on the hill of Mocaine. But so excited were they at their success that they forgot about the last 2 tasks. Some have it that Lu Lamvada had prevailed upon his druid wand to send a cloud of forgetfulness to seep into the brothers' minds after they had left Iorui. Whatever the cause, the wave sweeper returned to the Isle of Destiny. Lu heard of their coming, and was suddenly troubled, for he had followed the success of the Sons of Tuirenn with mixed feelings. He was happy that these gifts that they had secured were for him, but apprehensive that they might be turned against him as well. He was also bitter because the brothers were fulfilling the conditions of the Eric Fine, which Lu had crafted so deviously to cause their deaths. So when the wave sweeper entered the mouth of the Boyne, Lu went to the fort of Caithéar Crofin and armed himself with the magical armor of the ocean god Manannán, who was his foster father. He also put on the cloak of invisibility belonging to Fi the Hateful, one of the goddesses of war. For Lu also feared their coming, thinking that the 3 brothers might mean him harm now that they possessed such wonderful weapons. And when they sent word to Lu, asking him to come and collect his Eric Fine, Lu sent back, asking that they hand over the spoils to the Bodirgt the son of the Dagda, who had now succeeded Lu as the ruler of the children of Danu. Only when the Bodirgd reported that he had control over the wondrous gifts did Lu emerge and come to examine them. He looked over the gifts brought to him by the children of Tuirenn. Where is the cooking spit? He demanded. And I heard no shout upon the hill of Mocain. The sons of Tuirenn then remembered, and they were sorely grieved. So they left, and spent a night with their father Tuirenn and sister Athene, a fortress at Ben Adair. Now they did not have the benefit of the magical ship, the Wave Sweeper, for they had foolishly surrendered it to Lu, so they were forced to set sail in an ordinary ship, in search of Cian Cove. However, the task was a long one. For 3 months they searched, visiting many islands and asking many travellers if they knew of such a place, and no one knew. Finally, they met an old man, toothless and without eyes, for there were so many wrinkles and folds of flesh on his walnut-coloured face that they were hidden. He told them that the island of Cian Cove did not lie on the surface of the sea, but rather down in its depths. Brienne, telling Luca and Lucaba to wait for him, leapt over the side of the ship and sank down into the waves. For 2 periods of 9 days he walked the ocean bed in search of Cian Cove. He found many houses and great palaces. Finally he entered a house that had its doors wide open, where 150 beautiful women were engaged in needlework and embroidery. In the middle of them lay a cooking spit. Brienne saw that the women neither moved nor spoke as he entered, so without more ado he walked to the spit, seized it, and turned to walk out. At that point the women all burst out laughing. They rose and surrounded Brienne, who now saw that they had a formidable assortment of weapons. Brave man, are you Brienne, son of Tuirenn? There are 150 of us here, each one a warrior, and each one of us able to slay you. But you are brave, and courageous, to even think about making this attempt, knowing the dangers. You shall be rewarded. Take the spit, for we have many here. Brienne thanked them and swam upwards to the ship in which his brothers were waiting anxiously for him. They were overjoyed to see him with the spit. They turned the ship northward and sailed to the great fjords of Loch Lane, for that's what that name means, the place of lochs and fjords. They saw the great hill of Mocain rising upwards, and leaving their ship they walked to the bottom of it. But there, on the massive slopes, stood Mocain, who was a mighty warrior. Mocain saw Brienne and unsheathed his great sword. Killer of my friend and foster brother Cian, now you have come to shout upon this hill? You will do that deed only above my corpse. Brienne flew at Mocain, and the 2 great warriors set about one another. So fierce was their onslaught that the ringing of sword upon shield could be heard in every corner of the world. No quarter was asked, nor was one given, until Mocain fell dead, with Brienne's sword thrust through his giant heart. Then the 3 sons of Mocain, Ave, Corca, and Con, having heard this noise of battle, came racing up, and fell upon the 3 sons of Tuirenn. The sky reddened, then blackened, and blood flowed from that mountain slope like the gushing waters of a mountain spring, and the earth trembled from the stamping of their feet, even so far to the east as Hesperides. For 3 days and 3 nights the great combat shook the mountains of Loch Lane. Then the sons of Mocain managed to find the flesh of the sons of Tuirenn with their spear points. One of the sons of Tuirenn, Brienne, Luca, and Lucaba, were pierced and wounded. Yet the sons of Tuirenn would not give in, for they thrust their spears into the bodies of Ave, Corca, and Con, and the 3 sons of Mocain fell dead. The sons of Tuirenn fell on the bloody-stained grass, and it seemed that a heavy veil of darkness was being drawn before their eyes. Brienne, coughing blood, called faintly to his brothers. "How do you fare?" "Dead we are," they gasped, "or as near as it makes no difference." "Then we must climb the hill and give 3 shouts before death claims us," replied Brienne. "Only then may we rest in peace." With Brienne supporting his 2 brothers on his mighty arms, the 3 went forward up the steep slopes, stumbling and moving as if in a dream until they reached the summit. There they paused and gave 3 shouts. As weak as they were 3 shouts nonetheless. Brienne, still supporting his brothers, then guided them back to the ship, and they turned her prow for the Isle of Destiny. In a delirium, they drifted and drifted towards the distant island. Suddenly Brienne raised his head. I see Benéder and the fort of our father Tuirenn." His brothers raised their heads also, so they might see the green hills of their home before they died. The ship gently nudged ashore, and Tuirenn came down with Athene to greet his sons. "Father, take the spit to Lugh," instructed Brienne, "and tell him that the 3 shouts on the hill of Mocaine have been given." Tuirenn mounted his chariot and rode to Tara with the news, and he pleaded with Lugh to allow him a loan of the magical pigskin of Tuias, which would heal the sick and the wounded, or one of the apples of Hesperides. Lugh refused him coldly, and Tuirenn returned to his dying sons and lamented. If all the jewels of all the world were given to Lugh to ease his anger, it would not be enough to save you from this gloomy grave. But Brienne asked his father to take him before Lugh, and when Lugh stood before him, the dying warrior begged for the magic pigskin, for humanity's sake. "Ha! I will do no such thing," replied Lugh. "If you offer me the entire world and all the wonders it contains, I would not give it to you. Your death must follow. You killed Cian, and you denied him even when he pleaded with you for his life. You killed him cruelly, and nothing less than your own deaths will compensate for that deed." So Brienne returned to his dying brothers, and they were laid down side by side, united. Sons of Tuirenn sighed together for the last time, and their souls sped outwards from that breath into the other world. Athene stood with her father, hand in hand, and sang a doleful lament over the bodies of her brothers. Then both she and her father Tuirenn, overcome with grief, fell beside the bodies and departed this earth with them.